inattention. There's no single wrongdoer here, and there's not a problem finding a cure. This is an issue, a crisis, that actually can be solved, and relatively easily. It's a problem that, once solved, would not only help the status and lives of women in developing countries around the world, but would help the quality of life for all of us, men, women, and children in every country around the world as well. What I'm talking about this morning is improving maternal and reproductive health care and education for women and girls. This is a crisis that knows few champions, a crisis whose victims so poor and voiceless that the fact that hundreds of thousands of them die needlessly every year causes barely a reaction. The cries of the victims are so muted, they're essentially unheard. Well, no more. At this conference, we're all here to speak up for that. Let me give you the facts. Fact one, in the developing countries around the world, every single year, 529,000 women die from often easily avoidable complications due to pregnancy and childbirth. Or put another way, one woman dies of complications from pregnancy and childbirth every single minute of every single day. That's every minute. There's no taking off for Sundays or weekends or holidays or nights. Fact two, for every woman who dies, another 20, again, this is every minute, suffer from injury, infection, or disease relating to pregnancy or childbirth. Fact three, in these developing countries, the leading cause of death for girls 15 to 19 is complications from pregnancy and childbirth. And yet in many of these countries, child marriage with girls in their early teens giving birth is a common practice. Fact four, because of lack of education or a lack of access, 70,000 women and girls die and 5 million more are injured every year in botched abortions in countries where abortions are illegal. Fact five, there are approximately 130 million women alive today who have been victims of female genital mutilation, a practice that results in grave injuries and often death. Fact six, more than 776 million adults in the world, 2/3 of them women, continue to lack the basic reading and writing skills thought are needed to cope with everyday life. Now the good news is, and there is good news here, the good news is that nearly all of these deaths are preventable. Over 500,000 poor women die every year from something we already know the cure for. We, the industrialized nations of the world, the United States in particular, could do something about this crisis if we had the will to do so. We could virtually eliminate the maternal and reproductive health care crisis in the world for significantly less than the cost of a single weapons system in a single war. In fact, for less than 1/2 of 1% of what the U.S. spends each year on defense. But I'll get more into that in a minute. Before I do, I want to talk about why the world in general, and the U.S. in particular, should care about this issue. Besides the moral imperative caused by young women and girls suffering needless, premature, horrible death, there is one major reason, one rooted in self-interest, that should cause the nations of the world to help reverse this crisis. And the reason is this: empowering women and giving them access to reproductive health care services would lead to the alleviation of poverty and a sustainable future for our planet. Now that sounds like I'm promising a lot, I'm promising too much, right? But after all, I could compel you on the moral imperative alone, but it is true. The maternal and reproductive health of women and girls is very much tied to reversing poverty and creating a better future for the earth. How do we do that? Yeah. How do we do that? Because when a girl or a woman dies or is injured, the financial health and well-being of her family and community is impacted. Because terrorism flourishes in developing countries that are mired in poverty, and women's and maternal health care are directly linked to alleviating poverty. Because when a mother dies, her children are often severely neglected, turning into street children, and many dying before they reach the age of 5. Because when a girl is educated, she is likely to delay pregnancy and marriage, marrying an average of 4 years later and having at least 2 fewer children, giving her a better chance at making a living and contributing her talent to her family, her community, and her country. Because when women and girls earn an income, they usually reinvest 90% of that money back into their family as compared to 30 to 40% of men. Because when women and girls are educated, they're less likely to be forced into child marriages. When a young girl is forced into marriage, some as young as 10 years old, there's very little chance she'll get an education. And there's a 5-time increase in the likelihood that she'll die from childbirth. So let's talk about the solution. We know the problem, and we can see that alleviating the crisis surrounding maternal and reproductive health in developing countries would be enormously helpful to the world's self-interest. So how can it be done? In 1994, at the Cairo Conference on Population and Development, the United States, along with 178 other countries, declared that women cannot be empowered until they are in control of their reproduction. It is critical to break the barriers women around the world face in accessing adequate reproductive health care so that women can determine the number of children they have and truly attain empowerment. To do this, the countries pledged enough funding to guarantee by the year 2015, women and girls around the world would have universal access to basic education and reproductive health services. This money would fund a full range of reproductive health services, including treatment of sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV and AIDS, reproductive health education, contraception, and maternal health care services. Access to basic education was emphasized because when a woman or girl is educated, she is empowered to make informed decisions about her life, including reproductive choices. This incredible yet highly attainable goal was estimated to cost $29.2 billion per year in today's dollars. Donor countries, including the United States, pledged to cover 1/3 of this cost, but in no year has that pledge been met. The current total shortfall is at least $7.5 billion a year. The United States was on the way to meeting its commitment when